history, Swami Vadalar, being a scientist, explains the process, yoga, and science. This is very important. Science of compassion and how to apply it to the human anatomy and physiology. And he says the science of compassion can change the anatomy and physiology of our human bodies. I have already analyzed this science of compassion and its application to the human body in more than 10 chapters in this book. I have tried to explain the teachings and science of Vadalar, of his compassion, in more than hundreds of lectures in English and Tamil. Now, at last, it's a good sign that modern science has come to this stage. Has started. Some of the scientists have started immortality. They are talking about some other kind of immortality. They call it by various names as gerontology, regenerative medicine, immortality medicine, and so on. Dr. Ray Kurzweil, he is a great proponent of this idea of immortality. We should accept and bless him for his daring. He says by the year 2045, humanity will have conquered all the obstacles to immortality, and science will have given us all the gadgets, medicines, and other nanotechnology and information technology and other things. So humans will not die. At least they will live for another 300 years after 2045. That's just 25 years later. And he says, in the future, human body will have it will have become immortal, but the human body will contain more of non-biological limbs than biological limbs. That is where we have to consider it again. It will be something of a robotic man. That is one thing. Another famous scientist, one of the greatest astrophysicists living now, Dr. Michio Kaku says, in future, say in 1,000 years, this human body will be transformed into a digital body. When we have a digital body, we will not have any rockets to roam around the galaxies. Again, this has been already prophesied and carried out in his own body by Vadalar. Vadalar called it Pranava Degam, or Mantrik body or sound body. Vadalar Swami has given us, as I say in my book, the future evolution of humankind. Vadalar Swami has given this process of and science of immortality in 3 stages. Now we have an impure body. We have to depend upon nature or God for 3 things: food, air, and knowledge. And Swami says, in future, this body, physical impure body, will be transformed into 3 more bodies. That is the future evolution of humankind, according to Vadalar. What will be there? This impure body will be first transformed into a pure body. And that pure body will not rely upon nature for food. And then this pure body will be transformed into a somebody like that of the angels. And this body will not take oxygen for its survival, because it will produce its own food in the form of amrita and its own form of air. It is called Vega call. or Tadaipada call. Well, it is everywhere. Prana is everywhere. That is the principle that makes everything move and act. So that pranava will be directly inhaling. So in the pranava body, we will not need not only food, but also air. And in the final stage, the third stage of the body is called Gnostic light body or body of light of compassion. The whole body will not have these seven tissues, bodily tissues like skin, muscle, and bone and blood, nervous tissue. But it will be composed of the matter of compassion. According to Valalar Swami, even God he defines as Arutperum Jyoti. Jyoti means light. Perum means infinitely vast, and Arul means absolute compassion. So, if you translate Arutperum Jyoti into English, now we have the supreme light of infinitely vast compassion. That is God itself. So, he redefines God himself as a principle in nature, and he says the ultimate form of matter or consciousness is called supreme compassion. According to Valalar Swami, there are only 6 kinds of matter. First is inorganic matter, next is organic matter, after that, mental matter. That is where our humanity stands. Mental matter, and then soul matter or psychic matter, and then spiritual matter or Anma, and then finally God or the supreme being. It is the compassionate matter. It descended down into matter during creation or involution. Now we are going back through the same rungs of the ladder of evolution. Now we are at the third stage. We have to climb back 3 more steps. Now we are at the thought level. We have to climb to soul or psychic matter, and then Anma or spiritual matter, and then into divine matter of compassion. So, according to modern science, we will be having a robotic body made up of metals or plastic. Well, it is going against the very definition of evolution. It will not be evolution. It will be going back to the metal. Now, in the human body, matter has evolved into nervous tissue of the brain that can give us thoughts. And in future, our nervous matter or something higher than nervous matter will be produced in the body that could give us soul matter, spiritual matter, and divine matter. This is the natural way of evolution. This has to be taken into consideration because Swami Valalar has given us a complete science of future evolution with which this natural, physical, human, impure body could be translated and transformed into higher forms of energy, into supermen and superwomen, and then finally into divine men with a divine body and a divine consciousness. Okay, well, Sri Aurobindo and his disciple and coordinator, Mother Mira, I have seen her. They thought they also had the same idea. The divine life in a divine body human should have in future. But they thought just by practicing their integral yoga or mother's yoga of mind of the cells, they could achieve a divine body. The idea was noble. Some 50 years before, Vadalar Swami had the same idea. Man should lead a divine life in a divine body. Well, it was entertained even by the Vedic rishis. One of the Mahavakyas says, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. Potentially, that is, this potentiality has to be transformed into reality. It has to be realized only. But what are the ways in which it could be realized? That was not made clear. Well, I'm sorry to say, they are my own gurus. I worship them every day. Their bodies were not translated into divine bodies. Both of them entered into Maha Samadhi. Of course, they are muktas, no doubt about this. They would have transformed their consciousness into spiritual level or divine level, but their bodies did not succeed in becoming a divine body. They are buried in the ashram. And coming back to the science point of view, scientific point of view of Ray Kurzweil and Dr. Michio Kaku and Dr. Aubrey D. Gray, well, the natural way of evolving this human body is given us by Vadalar Swami, not only as philosophy, not only as yoga. Yoga is meant for some, but Vadalar Swami says the entire humanity must be transformed into divine species. That is what contemporary historian uh, Yuval Noah Harari has explained in his book Homo Deus. He has properly investigated what is going on in the present situation. Even some 100 years before, in 1960s, Sir Julian Huxley, who was then president of the UNESCO, had mentioned this fact. Homo sapiens as a species are undergoing a radical change, and he called it the new species as neo-humanism. And 100 years before Julian Huxley, even in the 1860s, when Darwin published his theory of evolution in his Origin of Species and Descent of Man, Vadalar Swami had already given us the exact science of future evolution of the human body. Darwin said, self-interest is the motive behind all actions in the plant kingdom, animal kingdom, and human kingdom. And before him, Sir Herbert Spencer, the philosopher of evolution, and even before him, Adam Smith, the economist, all had asserted this fact that our selfishness is the motive cause behind all of our actions. It could be right as far as the animal kingdom was concerned. But when evolution or the life force reaches humanity, there is a total turnaround of 180 degrees. Selfish gene was transformed into selfless gene. Unless selfless gene is formed in our bodies, we cannot stop this process of extinction. The whole world will be destroyed in various ways, in the atomic catastrophe or global warming or by viruses. So there are many ways in which this human species could be destroyed. The only way to stop it is to change this selfish gene into selfless gene. Of course, another scientist has refuted the book Selfish Gene by Dr. Richard Dawkins. It is called Selfless Gene. And Karen Armstrong, the historian of religions, has published a charter for compassion. And another man has written A Science of Kindness, a very big volume. So there are many people in the world who have come to this point that only compassion could save mankind. That was why Vadalar was born upon this earth. Paruvika Utrain, I was brought into this world by God, Vadalar says. For two reasons. Emphasize the importance of compassion, not only as love, as a characteristic, but as a way of life. You must practice vegetarianism and then veganism, and we must go beyond into breatharianism, and you must go beyond breatharianism. All these systems of food and nutrition are given by Vadalar. I have explained all these things in the book. So it's a long process, and it has to be uh, taken up slowly in 5 steps. So at last, we are given a complete science of evolution, future evolution of mankind. That is why I call Vadalar as the father of future sciences. I have analyzed some 20 departments of science, and in every department, Swami has given us more advanced knowledge of future, more advanced knowledge of future. I have explained most of the things in my lectures, and tomorrow also I will try to explain something when the time given to me comes. So, in brief, we are celebrating the 198th birthday of Vadalar. Why we celebrate it? Because the unique message given to us by Vadalar was this. Actually, it was not given by Vadalar, it was given by God Himself. God Himself said to him, according to Arulvila Kamalai in Tiruvuruppa, says, கொலை புரிவார் தவிர மற்ற அனைவரும் நின் குலத்து மக்களே நீ என் குலத்து முதல் மகனே. Let me translate it into English. God said to Vadalar, my son, with you, a new species of God men, divine humanity, is being born. You are its first child. En kulam, divine species. A new divine species was born with the advent of Vadalar in 1823, 5th October 1823. That was the birthday of Vadalar. So you can divide history into two sections, before Vadalar and after Vadalar. You look at the history of science, technology, and the idea of the global family, Vasudeva Kudumbam in Sanskrit. So you can see a lot of changes. You can see the acceleration of scientific research and technology with which science provides us with all our provides and satisfies all our vital needs like food, knowledge, and all these things. There will be a radical difference. What happened in some 5,000 years of history, now more than that has happened in the last 150 years. I think Vadalar is behind all this latest progress. So we are celebrating the right scientist in the right way, and soon I believe compassion will be accepted by modern science. It is a real science. I have explained it all in this book. I don't have to repeat it. I don't have the time. There are other speakers waiting for giving their own ideas. So the theme of this first international conference or seminar on the teachings of Vadalar on compassion and biological immortality, I am once again congratulating the organizers and participants of this conference and wish you all a success. Thank you. அருட்பெரும் ஜோதி அருட்பெரும் ஜோதி தனிப்பெரும் கருணை அருட்பெரும் ஜோதி. May all Yes. Yes, sir. I finished my speech. You can take over.
Thank you very much, Aya. It was really set the platform for today's global knowledge sharing series. As usual, you have clearly explained about how compassion paves the way for biological immortality. You've given the ground reality through Vadalar's teaching, and also given a path to the scientific world to have a look upon compassion as a new science for the human species to evolve from the current stage to the godly species. So thank you very much once again for joining us today and giving this scientific information. Now we'll be moving on to our speakers to have their view on compassion and biological immortality and the way to go. So now over to Ms. Shruti, who will be taking over on the speakers now.
Thank you, Mr. Muruganandamaya. And also, thank you so much, Mr. Kumpasamy Ayya, for your intriguing, thought-provoking inauguration speech. We can't wait to hear more about what you've got to say during your presentation tomorrow. To start off with, we've got a stellar bunch of speakers for everyone watching today. So let's get straight into it. Our first speaker is Mr. Dubyansky from Moscow, Russia. He lived in India and studied Vedic and Buddhist philosophies for a number of years. He also worked as a translator for spiritual guru Satya Sai Baba during interviews with Russian groups. He's also completed meditation training under Yogi Ram Iyer, who is a direct disciple of immortal Himalayan Mahatma known as Mahavatar Babaji. Today, Mr. Dubyansky is going to be talking about Mahavatar Babaji and the ancient tradition of Kriya Yoga. Mr. Dubyansky, the stage is yours.
Yes, namaste everyone. Yeah, now I can see. Yeah, thank you very much. Namaste everyone. And though you have introduced me already, so let me just say a few words about myself, my life, because I think it's very important to say just a few words about my spiritual quest and my job as the Kriya Yoga meditation master, because really the topic, which is biological or physical immortality and compassion, is really what is I think the most interesting for all of us. And okay, I'm a Kriya Yoga meditation master, and I'm also a esoteric author. Okay, at the moment my books are only in Russian language, so I have published some 10 books, already planning to translate them and publish in English as well. And also I'm artist, actually doing my oil on canvas artworks. Okay, basically 90s I spent in India. At that time I was learning Kriya Yoga and a Bija Mantra tradition from my personal guru, whose name was Yogi Rama. And so it means actually I spent really years and years, especially in South India, Tamil Nadu state, of course, a little bit Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka. Yeah, and as you know, I was also translating for Satya Sai for the Russian speaking groups. That was also back in 90s. And of course, my meditation and the mantra guru, whose name was Yogi Rama, he was strongly connected with Valalar tradition. And because actually Yogi Rama was born in Tamil Nadu, and of course Ramlinga Swami, that's how we call Valalar in English mostly, but in Tamil Nadu, yeah, the name of Valalar is more common, more famous for the people. And yeah, my guru, Yogi Rama, he was born in 1920, I believe 23, and he passed away 2006. And he initiated me into Kriya Yoga meditation, and he blessed me to continue the job. I mean, to teach people meditation, Kriya Yoga meditation, and the Bija Mantra tradition. But what was interesting about my guru, Yogi Rama, who actually was like from the Chettiar family, and 1968, I believe, he immigrated to the United States. So he established a number of ashrams in Arizona, California, and East Coast, New York City as well. The interesting point about Yogi Ramek was that he actually was a direct disciple of Mahavatar Babaji, famous, great, immortal yogi, immortal spiritual master from Himalaya. So it means the tradition of immortal masters. That was exactly the tradition of Yogi Ramek. And okay, when we speak about the possibility of biological, or sometimes people call it physical immortality, of course, first question is, do we have actually examples? Because for many people, even religious people, even yoga practitioners, the question itself is something like fantasy. But actually, we have a lot of examples, and it means the possibility is there. And of course, one of the most bright personalities is Valalar, or how we call him, Ramlinga Swami from Tamil Nadu. And that's, of course, very special example because he, in a sense, lived in 19th century, so just recently. And we remember that when he had achieved this golden body and disappeared in the light, so even British police left report about the event. I believe it's like only the police proof about physical immortality in the history of our culture, but we have this document as well. And of course, for the global yoga community, yogic community, autobiography of a yogi written by Paramahamsa Yogananda. Of course, I'm sure you know this book pretty well. That's really a very special book because of many reasons actually. But Yogananda published this book, first edition, back 1946, and so actually middle of 20th century. And exactly in this book, Yogananda, for the first time in the history of human culture, really described, mentioned, gave us the message about Mahavatar Babaji, the immortal Himalayan master. Now, in the yogic communities, we can't even imagine, our spirituality without Mahavatar Babaji. But let us remember that before actually 1946, before this book has been published, so actually this information was absolutely hidden, and only a small group of highly advanced yogis, Himalayan yogis, they knew about the existence of Mahavatar Babaji as immortal master. Well, it's very interesting that in this book, which is of course the most important book for the Kriya Yoga tradition, Yogananda also gave us actually information about one more immortal master, and that's Agastya Muni. Most of the readers, they pay attention, when Yogananda speaks about Mahavatar Babaji, but really we have information from this autobiography of a yogi also about South Indian immortal, most probably the most famous for the South Indian Dravidian tradition, this Agastya Muni. Of course, we know that there are many opinions about Agastya Muni, sage Agastya, and some spiritual masters, they prefer to speak about, Agastya, like, okay, he lived like, thousands of years ago, and then, okay, he's no more physically on the planet. But according to the certain traditions, Kriya Yoga, Shaiva Siddhanta, yeah, Agastya Muni was and is physically immortal master who is physically staying on this wonderful planet. Of course, the big question is, huge question, how to meet him. And some great mystics, they may even meet him physically. And in my life, I never met Agastya myself, but I saw few highly advanced yogis who actually met Agastya and received spiritual instructions. That's huge. That's the proof that Agastya Muni is also example of that highest achievement. That's interesting that we have actually a long list of the names, and it means all that names are examples. For example, okay, let us mention about Goraknath. And again, we have so many different approaches, and according to some, more scientific approach to the personality of Goraknath, he lived, some maybe 6 or 8 centuries ago. But Kriya Yoga and Navanath Sampradaya tradition, they speak that no, actually Goraknath is on the level of physical immortality. So it means we can't speak about Goraknath in the past tense. So he is just the same also example of this highest enlightenment. Well, in the Buddhist tradition, we have a huge number of masters, and of course one of them is Padmasambhava, and number of masters from Nyingma tradition, a Buddhist school, and they are also are examples. Why I pay attention to the examples? Because, well, it's my personal experience. I'm sure that's your experience as well. When you speak with people about possibility of biological mortality, the first question is, well, how can we be sure that this is not somebody's fantasy? Yeah, that's not fantasy, because we have a long list of great masters from the different traditions and sampradayas who had achieved in the past this highest level of self-realization. We have a tradition of, North Indian, like 9 immortals, Navanatha. We have 18 Tamil Siddhas. We have a tradition of 8 Chinese immortals. And of course, when we speak about, when we just mention all that numbers, it doesn't mean that in South Indian, Dravidian, Shaiva Siddhanta tradition, we have only 18 immortals. No, my Guru Yogi Rama told me that actually it's like thousands of immortal masters are there, but 18 just the most important. The same with the North Indian Nath tradition. It doesn't mean that we have only 9 immortals. No, the number, according to information which we have, as oral tradition, like thousands of them, but 9 are the most important. The same with the Chinese Taoist tradition. We have 8 most important immortal masters, but real number, like again, thousands. Can you imagine? So it's like we have our culture, we have our so-called social life, political, all that leadership, etc. But on this planet, we have thousands of masters, yogis, who are on that highest level of self-realization. Okay, just let me speak about some few more words about Yogananda, and now we have two more great books written by Yogananda, and one of them is God Talks with Arjuna, the Bhagavad Gita. So the Yogananda's commentaries to the Bhagavad Gita in the light of Kriya Yoga meditation tradition, and the second coming of Christ. So that's Yogananda's commentaries to the New Testament gospel teaching, again in the light of Kriya Yoga tradition. That's interesting that, actually, well, we can speak about Valalar, we can speak about Yogananda, all that great masters, they're actually beyond any religion. They're actually beyond any culture even. That's like absolutely universal masters. That's the reason why Yogananda, okay, he was born in Calcutta, at least not really in Calcutta, but in North India. Um, and he was born as the Hindu, but okay, he did this great fundamental job, commentaries to the Christian Bible in the light of, okay, Kriya Yoga meditation. And it's interesting that in the end of this book, I believe it's chapter number 75, but at least the last one, Yogananda actually it's describing how Jesus the Christ was transformed, or okay, we can say he had achieved this highest self-realization, enlightenment, which includes biological mortality. So that's at least opinion of Yogananda, and I fully agree with this. So it means Jesus the Christ is also one of those masters who really went through this huge transformation. And that, according to the Yogananda's commentaries, the deep esoteric meaning why actually Jesus led to be crucified. Because, many Christians and non-Christians, they ask the question, okay, why? Why? So it means that Jesus was so kind of weak guy, and somebody could just arrest him and crucify. How it's possible that he is a great miracle maker, But the meaning is that was his choice to be crucified, and through that somehow, according to the Yogananda, he he was transformed. So it was not just resurrection, but achievement of the highest transformation. And then after 3 days, he came to his disciples. And why they didn't recognize him in the beginning? Because he was in a new physical body. So, and that's also the part of the story. And okay, my guru Yogi Ramesh, he told me very interesting teaching, which is obvious, I believe, for everyone here, but it's not obvious for the general public. When we speak about physical possibility of the physical immortality or biological immortality, the way we call it here, if we just analyze this possibility, okay, in the light, or better to say, in the darkness of ego, then it's a totally wrong actually approach, because ego, selfishness, oh well, if ego comes to know about possibility of physical immortality, the result is very poor, because from the point of ego, well, to be immortal means to enjoy power, food, and sex, and all that things. That's misunderstanding. And many people, they really think about possibility of biological mortality based on ego, and that's totally wrong, because ego is ego. It's always in a state of ignorance and suffering. Only divine, pure soul can achieve this highest level of self-realization, not ego. And my guru Yogi Rama, he told me a very interesting teaching, which is that physical mortality is not the goal of, spirituality. That's obvious, actually, but not for everyone, of course, unfortunately. So the physical immortality, biological immortality, is not the goal. The goal is self-inquiry. In Sanskrit, we call it atma-vichara, self-inquiry. Who am I? Okay, it's like very ancient Vedic, and not only Vedic, it's a Christian and a Buddhist question, who am I? And then step by step, we come to the great understanding, great knowledge that Lord God is not somewhere above, but he's in our spiritual heart. Good news. And then step by step, with the help of meditation, much less logic, more like meditation, we come to the realization that actually self, soul, is identical in the original beginningless oneness with God, absolute consciousness. So there's no two, but one. So that is the process of Atma Vichara, or self-inquiry, which is the essence of any true spirituality. Actually, self-inquiry is the foundation not only for the Vedic Hindu tradition, Sanatana Dharma. It's not on, it's, if it's real Buddhist tradition, means it's self-inquiry. If it's real Christian tradition, it's self-inquiry. So any true spirituality is always about quest for God, but not outside, but in one's own spiritual heart. And then my guru told that, the point is self-inquiry. It's not physical immortality. But then, okay, what is the special thing about possibility of biological immortality? An explanation in our Kriya Yoga tradition is that, sounds strange, but biological immortality is a kind of byproduct of actually highest self-realization. The top level of self-realization physical body is also transformed into the immortal body of divine light, vibration, compassions. According to the Kriya Yoga tradition, we have 4 major steps of enlightenment or self-realization. And in the most of traditions, even great masters actually explain only 2 of them, but really there are 4. The first is Savikalpa Samadhi. Savikalpa Samadhi means when we experience this oneness with the God for a while. Then we come back from that state and, we jump back into the more or less ignorance and duality. Then is the Nirvikalpa Samadhi. And for many traditions, this is the highest level of enlightenment, but not for, I believe, for us. For the Kriya Yoga tradition, for Shaiva Siddhanta tradition, for Valalar philosophy, that's just a step. Nirvikalpa Samadhi, when you experience oneness with the divine consciousness, then you come back and it's like and you are totally transformed. And then one more interesting step, which is Sahaja Samadhi. Sahaja Samadhi is step number 3. And then it's actually when you can't go and come and just live your life. And each and every moment of your life, you experience this absolute divine consciousness. Okay, first 2 steps, Savikalpa Samadhi and then Nirvikalpa Samadhi. It's like you may experience absolute consciousness, then you come back and you may lose this bliss and oneness. In Sahaja Samadhi, just only oneness. On that stage, highest yogis, they even stop to meditate. And okay, very famous Kriya Yoga master who lived back in 19th century was Lahiri Baba from Varanasi. He was on this level of Sahaja Samadhi because some of his disciples, they had examined his physical conditions, and he was no breathing process, no function of the heart. He was always Lahiri Baba in a state of oneness with the divine consciousness. But at the same time, he was a family person, and okay, he was working for some as an accountant, by the way. And then the last step, number 4, according to Kriya Yoga oral tradition, is Shiva Swarupa Samadhi. Shiva Swarupa Samadhi means yogi, practitioner, completely experience absolute divine consciousness, which, okay, in the yogic tradition, in tantric tradition, in South Indian Dravidian tradition, we call Shiva. Shiva means absolute consciousness. So, of course, there are many approaches to the Shiva. What does it mean, Shiva? Some people think, and of course I respect, that Shiva is a certain great master somewhere. But inner esoteric meaning, Shiva means absolute consciousness, is a light, bliss, compassion. And when meditation practitioner experience this just a total awakening of this Shiva reality, then is a Shiva Swarupa Samadhi. According to this terminology, actually we can say that, for example, Mahatar Babaji or Goraknath or Agastya Muni or Padma Sambhava or, of course, Valalar, Ramalinga Swami, they are examples of this amazing Shiva Swarupa Samadhi state. And according to Yogananda's commentaries, Jesus Christ also experienced the same level after crucifixion and resurrection, chapter number 75 in the Yogananda's commentaries to the New Testament. So it means that's interesting what we see as that some of that great masters, they experience so-called rainbow body. And the term itself, rainbow body, means when somebody experiencing this total enlightenment, which is Shiva Swarupa Samadhi, and then just disappear in a light. That's what exactly happened with our saint, Valalar. But some of the masters, they stay for ages, for thousands of years, in that physically immortal body. And in Sanskrit, we call this experience Deva Deha, the body, divine body, Deva Deha, or one more Buddhist term for this is Vajra Deha, body like Vajra, like diamond body. And in English, okay, we speak about biological immortality, we call it physical immortality, or very interesting, golden body, also the name for this. And it's not for me, as the normal human being, to discuss why some masters just disappear in a rainbow body and some masters remain on this planet. That's depend on the mission. Even if some of the masters experience so-called rainbow body and disappear, like okay, Valalar, well, we have stories, and I myself believe into that stories, that sometimes Valalar Ramalinga Swami may appear even physically in front of some disciples, some devotees. Yeah, actually 5 more minutes and I just complete my my lecture. Okay, what kind of tool we have to achieve this? First of all, I don't believe that medical science may help. It's like, previous wonderful lecture, and it was also mentioning there that, okay, science may help us to live longer. Even some scientific projects, they speak about biological immortality, but I don't believe that it is possible to achieve just because of medical science. Because, first of all, we have to transform our consciousness. And that's the question of compassion, which is extremely important for all great masters, for Buddha, for Jesus, and for Valalar as well. Compassion, love. In Sanskrit, we call it karuna, compassion, prema, divine love. And the Atma Vichara, again, it's childish to believe that some medical science may help us to become immortal. For what? It's an ego trick. So we have to remember that this is a purely spiritual process and the meaning. So it means any kind of meditation we can practice. Of course, I like all my life I'm practicing Kriya Yoga meditation, but we have so many kinds of meditation. For example, one of the most beautiful Arat Piranjoti mantra given by Valalar. That's a wonderful, meditation technique. When you repeat this Arat Piranjoti mantra and meditate on meaning, and also actually years and years back, I spent time, wonderful weeks in Vadalur and Siddhivalagam, the places of Ramalinga Swami, and some practitioners of Valalar tradition, they mention about possibility to practice this Arat Piranjoti mantra not only as japa, but just like as a pranayama, like 2 lines purakam, inhalation, 2 lines exhalation. So it's like also the meditation and pranayama. So, and of course, only selfless love and compassion This is the foundation for any kind of real spirituality. So it means we can practice any kind of mantra or prayer or meditation unless we open our heart and express love, compassion. Only this can transform us into spiritual beings. Okay, let me conclude this lecture. So thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Divyansky. It was really wonderful presentation on about siddhas and the Kriya Yogic practice. And lastly, you very beautifully mentioned that compassion is the pathway for physical immortality. And now we are getting into the question and answer session. We would hear from our participants. Is there any questions so that we can clarify their now question time. Any questions from the audience, you can raise your hand symbol in Zoom session. One of the members will be unmuting you so that you can ask the questions to Divyansky.
Can you ask a question? Can I ask a question, Mr. Murugananda?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Yeah, I am Muthu Jodi. Very good presentation. I mean, lecture, Mr. Albayansky. I congratulate for your very, very powerful and valuable points you put forth. I'm glad that you have been mentioning about this Siddha tradition, which is 18 in Tamil and 8 in Chinese, 9 in North India. We have been saying all these things. The tradition comes from Agastya, then Babaji, then Ramayaji, then and Gogranath, so many people. I'm glad about that. You mentioned about Paramahamsa Yogananda's book and all. I'm fortunate enough to read that book completely in both English as well as in Tamil. I want to understand from you whether Paramahamsa Yogananda talks about compassion in the entire book, because he talks about this self-realization, Atma Vichara. So there's no doubt about that. Unless a person does the Atma Vichara or this self-enquiry, there is no way to go about further. But the thing is, the beauty of Valala, that is within oneself. When you do Atma Vichara, it is for you and it is within yourself. But the whole life or the essence of Valala is going out of your consciousness and seeing the world around and seeing the other Atmas outside, where the compassion, the power of compassion comes. So I like to understand from you whether he talks about compassion. He means, Paramahamsa Yogananda, because the entire book I have read. Does he mention about compassion there, which is the lifeline of Vandala?
Okay. Some of the Kriya Yoga masters, unfortunately, they never mention about compassion. But yes, Yogananda, he spoke about divine love. And I believe that the meaning is actually compassion, because it's like if you take Buddhist tradition, they speak about compassion. The Jesus, and it's like divine love, but basically it's the same. And maybe because Yogananda actually immigrated to the United States 1920, and most of his Western disciples were Christians, for him it was much easier to express this idea in a way like divine love. And I think the greatness, Yogananda's greatness, is exactly because he spoke not only about personal self-realization or meditation, but he spoke about some, transformation and service for the humankind. And of course, not each and every Kriya Yoga master mentioning about this, but Yogananda for sure is the great example. And we have a number of volumes with his lectures, divine discourses, and they're like, he's always speaking about love and service. So it means a selfless, like, like in the Buddhist tradition, they speak about, okay, we wished to achieve enlightenment, but the purpose is to help other people to achieve freedom from suffering. So that's my answer.
Only thing is I want to understand whether does he talk about the 3 stages of body transmutation as Vallala talks?
Okay, actually, what is my knowledge about Yogananda is that he knew much more than he could speak to his Western disciples. So it means his knowledge was really high, but he spoke, okay, just a part of it, because that was his job, his mission, according to the Mahatar Babaji, okay, will. That's the reason why in his books, he's speaking about Savikalpa Samadhi and then Nirvikalpa Samadhi, never about Shiva Swarupa Samadhi, but he knew about it. Okay, if we say, okay, actually he never mentioned it because that was Mahatar Babaji will, okay, he spoke up to a certain level, but not more. But if we speak about Sri Aurobindo from Pondicherry, his teaching is, I mean, very important, I believe, for everyone, but for Kriya Yoga tradition, because according to the oral tradition, we know that Sri Aurobindo was initiated into Kriya Yoga, and that's our knowledge. And actually, he was practicing certain Kriya Yoga meditation techniques. And the clarity, Aurobindo's clarity about highest achievements of self-realization, which includes biological mortality, was absolute. So it means if we may say, okay, English language literature, okay, about this, of course, Sri Aurobindo. And actually, Sri Aurobindo, actually, he, in the end of his life, he told very complicated, very difficult idea. I know that not everyone may understand, but I hope we can. He told that I myself, Aurobindo told about, okay, his spiritual life, I myself may achieve this golden body, but I wish whole humankind, whole humanity will transform one day into that, golden immortality. That was huge idea, of course, based on compassion.
Thank you, Muthujodia, for asking this question. Next question. We have a question from Arivoli. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Hey, my name is Arivoli. I'm from US. And I have a question is that what's the difference between the Sahavilpa Samadhi and the Nirvikalpa Samadhi? And the second is, Vallal Peruman insists that Samadhi Pazhakam Pazhakam, meaning that the practice of Samadhi is not correct, and the normal practice is, normal life is the right path, he says. So how you are saying that
no,
how you are saying
didn't say that. Muthujodi sir, Vadalar said, Samadhi Pazhakam Pazhakam alla, Sahaja Pazhakame Pazhakam. When he said Sahaja Pazhakam, he meant only Sahaja Samadhi. Okay. Vadalar also mentions about Sahaja Samadhi and also about Siva Samadhi, and he goes beyond into Sutta Siva Samadhi. So he mentions about Sahaja Samadhi. When he says Samadhi Pazhakam Pazhakam alla, Sahaja Pazhakame Pazhakam, when he means by the word Sahajam only Sahaja Samadhi, and he goes beyond Sahaja Samadhi into Siva Samadhi and goes beyond into Sutta Siva Turyadidam. Sutta Siva Turyadidam. In Saiva Siddhanta, Turyadidam means Samadhi. Okay, but if you go beyond that Turyam, there are 3 more levels: Jiva Turyam, Paraturyam, Siva Turyam. And Vadalar goes beyond that into Sutta Siva Turyadidam, 43rd state of highest consciousness of Arutperum Jodi. So Vallala has known about all these yogic levels and wisdom levels. Yes, said everything. In fact, I need one. Well, that was a wonderful lecture by Brother Debyansky. And Vadalar didn't stop with self-realization or biological immortality, sir. He gave us 4 ends of life. Yemasitti, Saha Kalvi, Tattvandigaram, Yerayantan, Ammayamada. The last end means to know the science of Godhead and attain it. It is called Brahma Vidya, God realization. Beyond self-realization, Atma Vidya, it is called Brahma Vidya in Vedanta, God realization. So, Vallar Swami asks us to go for God realization, because according to Vallar Swami, why he stresses compassion, he says, every being or organism is a single cell in the cosmic body of God. You are a cell, I am a cell. Okay. Then what happens is that your ego kills you. Valalar openly tells us your ego consciousness is the cause of your death, because your ego consciousness does not allow universal natural forces to enter into your body, and finally it cuts off the opening itself. That is why we die for lack of universal energy or consciousness. So Valalar Swami says, you are not only one cell in the cosmic body, you are also a brother or sister of all the cells in the cosmic body. That is all sentient beings. See, our body cells turn into cancer cells when the cancer cells think of only their egoistic survival. So when a cell in the cosmic body turns totally selfish, he becomes a cancer cell in the body of the God. So it is terminated and killed and destroyed. So only your ego creates the cancer in the body of the cosmic body of God. So instead of selfishness or self-centeredness, if you create compassion, what happens? That is what is already happening in our body. Our cells in the eyes, they see for the whole body. They not only see for themselves. Our cells in the stomach and digestive system, they digest food and supply food for all the cells, all the 3 trillion cells in the body. In the same way, we must work for all the cells in the cosmic body of God. There you need compassion. That is why Vallalar Swami, though he was a very great yogi and practiced some more than 40 types of yoga and wisdom traditions, he emphasized compassion because compassion makes you a cell of the body, and you work for the entire body of cosmic body of God. That's why he says there are 2 ways in Sudarshan Marga. Atma Tattva Vicharam Parobharam. He doesn't stop with self-inquiry. He also adds compassion, because we have seen throughout history all types of yogas, meditations, prayers, but still man is still violent, and all sorts of violence, wars are going on. So he says, just add to your repertoire of yogas compassion. Along with the prayer, add compassion. Along with your yoga, add compassion as a way of life. So he doesn't negate these yoga, samadhis, he accepts everything, but he wants us to give way to compassion also. Compassion as a way of life. Because only with the compassion, man becomes human. Aristotle defined man as a thinking animal, and Vallalar says that thinking animal becomes human only with the qualification of compassion. When this compassion becomes absolute, he attains the divine level. And everybody is allowed to do that. If you are qualified with 100% compassion towards all sentient beings, not only with the humans, he goes beyond humanism into universal brother Hanmaneyam. Beyond Manidaneyam, beyond humanism, he goes into Hanmaneyam. That is why he stresses this compassion. With compassion, you not only attain biological immortality, you go beyond that into a divine life in a divine body. You can attain divine body also. That is the last stage called Jnana Oli Degam, Aruloli Degam. And Vadalar equates compassion with wisdom itself. So he doesn't negate Sahaja Samadhi or yoga, but he wants to add compassion to all these methods. That was a wonderful lecture, sir. You analyzed all the aspects of esoteric self-knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Salem Kopasamy, sir.
Okay.
That was a very detailed answer. Thank you so much for the panelists. And I have one quick question for the entire panelists, Muthujodi sir, Salem Kopasamy sir, and then Dubyansky also. I heard you all, and because we started this with a plant-based goal of 2026, a plant-based diet goal of 2026. And also I listened to all of you on the selfish gene, and then the selfless gene, and then the cancer, the cause is actually ego and all those things. Now the question is, if all the cells
Carry on, please. Carry on, Shankar.
Yeah, I can unmute myself. Thank you. I have unmuted. If all the cells in the entire world is our brothers and sisters, because it actually came from the oneness, how can we even eat plant? Even if it is just not a capital, we are not killing the plant. Even if we just take only the fruit, they are all living cells. And again, how do we eat them to live? Shouldn't we actually stop eating at all?
That's the best choice. We have to, yeah. Actually, you see, of course, my approach is that in any religious, esoteric, spiritual tradition, we have one big danger, if I can call it danger. This is to be too much intellectual. We read books, we memorize it, and then by mistake we think that this intellectual knowledge, that's what is self-realization or whatever. But intellectual knowledge is just intellectual knowledge. For example, I may know whatever, but it doesn't mean that this is my actual experience. People can memorize Bhagavad Gita or number of Upanishads. People read Sri Aurobindo, Valalar's books. Unfortunately, mostly Valalar's books are in Tamil, so only some translations are available. But anyway, people read, then they know, so-called know, but it doesn't mean that this is actual experience. So that's the reason why, that's just my opinion, that it's impossible to achieve real experience of divinity without meditation, this or that any kind of meditation. And when I was learning, biography of Valalar, and for me, I hope for you as well, it's absolutely obvious that this or that kind of inner sadhana, meditation was there. We can call it whatever kind of meditation, but even when we practice Arat Paranjoti mantra, that's also sadhana. So it means that's very important for me. The people who just speak about brotherhood, sisterhood, but if there is no any inner actual experience of oneness, then it's nice, like social good stuff. So that's the reason why, that's my opinion, that meditation plus compassions comes together, and that may bring real divine transformation. Because only if we meditate, you can experience that we're all in oneness. If we are not practicing meditation, Means just intellectual knowledge about oneness. Yeah, that's my opinion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dibiansky. Definitely we'll be having another opportunity to answer the second part of this question for sure. Maybe Kupusamaya and Muthujodeya would like to answer this in the coming sessions.
Quick question
Definitely we'll get
to answer to Mr. Shankar. One quick answer to Mr. Shankar. Mr. Shankar, I'm glad that a young man has come forward to ask this beautiful question. Please refer to the question and answer given by Valalar in Jivakarani Olkam. That is 30. Question number 30. He gives asks the question and gives the answer himself. The same question what you asked, he asks the question and he gives the answer also there. Due to paucity of time, I'm not discussing it in detail here. Whether this killing of plants equal to killing of animals. Please refer to that question. Read it completely. It's only some 18 or 20 lines. Very beautifully explains. If there is any more doubt, or even after that, we'll discuss offline, Mr. Shankar, because this will debate the question and answer time now. I'm glad that you asked this. The answer is there given by Valalar in a poem. So anybody can read that. He has given the answer question in question number 30 in Jivakarani Olkam book. Thank you.
Now we'll be moving on to our next speaker. Over to Shruti.
Mr. Shankar, 1 minute. 1 minute, Muruga. 1 minute.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Breatharians have already answered your question, sir. Breatharians have already answered your question, Mr. Shankar.
You can go to the book, sir, then you can ask because he's very eager to ask. Yes, Mr. Muruganathan. Muruganathan?
Yeah, over to Shruti.
Shruti, okay.
Thank you so much, guys, for that thought-provoking discussion. It was a wonderful discourse, Mr. Dubiansky. The notion that immortality is not really a mystic concept, but actually a real possibility was a very eye-opening one. It's also interesting how you pointed out that spiritual gurus from various parts of the world and various different religions were able to achieve biological immortality. That quest for God in the spiritual guru's heart led to self-inquiry and selfless love and compassion, and eventually self-realization. It's also interesting how you pointed out that biological immortality was not really the end goal for these spiritual gurus, but instead the byproduct of the top level of self-realization, self-love, and compassion. Next up, we've got Maxime. Mr. Maxime from Moscow, Russia. Maxime is a contemporary yogi, life researcher, teacher, consultant, and musician. He studied Himalaya yoga from Pilot Baba, the master of Samadhi. He was also a disciple of Vankandi Maharaja, a 100-year-old saint from the Himalayas. His knowledge in various spiritual sciences, including Christianity and Qigong. He also has a degree in marketing and has worked in the corporate world. He works as a bridge between spirituality, science, and business. Today, he'll be talking about immortality in everyday life, practical wisdoms of the great yogis. Mr. Maxime, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for organizing this great event. Namaskar to everyone. Nice to be here. Once I asked my Guruji, what is the most important thing in yoga? I realized it's not pranayamas. It's not about mantras. It's not about asana. There must be something else, the most important, the key. He said, sankalpa. He also said, love, and prem. And he said, sraddha, faith. So I propose, as we gather together here, our mutual sankalpa, Arut Perum Jyoti. So let this gathering and our conversation be beneficial for all the participants and all the universe. So I welcome you to this investigation. I'm happy to be here. I will start my presentation talking a little bit about myself, where I come from, and why do you have to listen me, and what in my message. Okay. I'm a practitioner. I live in Moscow, but originally I come from Ukraine, from Kiev, so I represent Russia altogether with Mr. Dubansky, who was talking before me. I would like to talk about practical immortality in everyday life. You know, once when I was young, I looked at Jesus Christ and I thought, I would like to be like him because he knows something about love. And this is power. That's what I want to do in life. And I would like to be a saint in the city. It was an interesting idea. Now, I don't want to be a saint. I just want to be myself. I want to be human as good as I can. But it gave me the course of my life. Nowadays, I work as a contemporary yogi. What does it mean? For many years, I learned Himalaya yoga from my master, Palad Babaji, and also other masters. And one day he told me, you're a good teacher. Learn and teach people in simple words, without yoga. Learn how to explain the things you know, the knowledge of yoga, in very simple, modern way. So this is my strong side. I learned how to do that. And I do that with music. I do that with joy. I do that with research in life and also conducting psychological workshops. This is my passion and this is what I like to do. I would like to tell a little bit about my teachers. Palad Babaji is Himalayan master, and he is well known for his samadhi experiments, and he cooperated with science. He had more than 150 public samadhis, and he let science investigate the abilities of human bodies. So this is his message to the world, that we all can transcend beyond our restrictions of mind. We are divine, Sat Chitananda. We are omnipresent. I've been studying for him and I've been living with him, and also I've been teaching. He used me as his conductor. I've been teaching and he has been working through me. My second guru, though I know tradition doesn't allow that, but once I get to this master, I remembered him as a guru from my previous life. So I can say I'm lucky enough to have two gurus. This is another kind of master. He is now more than 100 years old and he lives in Himalayas. He has very small mountain ashrama in Nainital. I didn't see a person who is in more harmony with the nature. At this moment, he embodies what is immortality is, because he's 100 years old, but he wakes up 3 in the morning every day, and he has the energy of 30-year-old man. When you look at him, he's so young. So that's what you can learn. And you know, when I ask him, please tell on the camera for my friends, what do you need to do to live for 100 years? Well, he laughed And he said, eat less, sleep less, and don't worry. Of course, there is so much more than that. He teaches humanity. He teaches love and compassion. This is Vanhandi Maharaj. I also, I was teaching Qigong and Chinese tradition, though it's not Chinese, it's much more ancient than that. And I had some experience in that. I would like to base my presentation upon one quote. Pilot Babaji, he lived in Himalayas for many years, and he is known to be the master of Himalayan yoga, Siddha yoga, the master of Samadhi. So once he told a story about immortals in Himalayas. He said, I had a chance to communicate and learn from them. And once I asked them, why do you live so long? He asked them, why do you live so long? And you know what was the answer? They answered, we don't know. Life supports us. It just refuses to leave our bodies. Can you imagine? What a great answer. We don't know. Life refuses to leave our body. Life just supports them. They don't care. They're not attached to life. They don't think. They didn't ask for immortality. They answered, we don't know. Life refuses to leave our body. So I would like to base my presentation on this quote and to investigate with your help, what should we do so life can support our bodies? How to be friends with life? What does it mean to live, to be part of life? When I asked my Guruji, Palat Baba, about immortality, he said that meditation is the answer. Samadhi is the answer. You have to become one with life. Because only body has age, personality has age, mind has age, but life, it has no age. You know, there is one simple rule, maybe law of life, which is written everywhere. Sanatana Dharma is based on that life supports life. In many scriptures, Master said that life supports life. Gunas rotate in gunas. The one who realized that, there is nothing else he needs to know. This is the ultimate knowledge. Life carries life. Life lives life. But how can we use that practically? How can we feel it, understand it? Am I part of life? Am I not part of life? Am I good part of life? Am I doing good or bad? How to understand? You know, before today, I planned other kind of presentation, but listening to all the great speakers today, I realized we have to move in a little bit different direction to make it the most practical way. I would like to tell you about